What?
I say, isn't it correct? The whole "I can't breathe" line.
Yeah, it's America that can't breathe. You can't breathe if you challenge.
No, I'm sorry. Wait. Forgive me. I made a mistake. He did say I can't breathe. I was talking about hands up, don't shoot. That was made up.
That was made up. It was invented by Michael Brown had an accomplice in the strong arm robbery, and he's the guy who volunteered it. And they just accept if it's a criminal saying what you want him to say, you quote it like it's gospel. It's sad what's happened to this country. We're close to the end of our tether. I don't know if we can survive this. There isn't that much time. And these people are ruthless. This is right up your alley, Dennis. Did you see that Biden just appointed a graduate of Moscow University who was there on a Lenin scholarship? Who just put her in control of our currency system?
It's up both. It should be up the country's alley. It's nothing is shocking though. That's the tragedy. Nothing is shocking. Anyway, I want to make it clear what you do in this book is so important. I mean, the George Floyd thing was not racist. Listen, I know you know this. Obviously, you cited it in your book and on the show, and I've cited it. But I never actually played what Keith Ellison, again, Attorney General, black, leftist Attorney General of Minnesota, where I am right now, and this is what he said. What was it, 60 Minutes? What did he say it on?
60 Minutes, yeah.
60 Minutes. All right, here it goes. Here it goes.
Right after the trial.
Right after the trial.
Should have been.
I wouldn't call it that, because hate crimes are crimes where there's an explicit motive and of bias. We don't have any evidence that Derek Chauvin factored in George Floyd's race as he did what he did.
You could have charged him with a hate crime under Minnesota law, and you chose not to.
Could have, but we only charge those crimes that we had evidence that we could put in front of a jury to prove. If we'd have had a witness that told us that Derek Chauvin made a racial reference, we might have charged him with a hate crime. But I would have needed a witness to say that on the stand. We didn't have it, so we didn't do it.
You know, Dennis, listening to this, I'm reminded of something that my mentor when I was a young leftist, Isaac Deutscher, told me. He said, David, you have to understand the problem with politics is that people have a hard time adding 2 and 2 and getting 4. So he's the chief prosecutor admitting that he has no evidence, not even a remark made in anger, that Derek Chauvin had any racial attitudes. Yet he prosecuted him for murder, also without evidence. There was not, I don't recall during the trial, one testimony that Derek Chauvin ever said he intended to kill George Floyd. And personally, I think ingesting 4 times the lethal dose of fentanyl will do it without a knee on the neck. And the knee wasn't, of course, on his jugular vein. It wasn't on his windpipe. It was on a blood vessel on the side of his neck, which would cause blood flow to stop to the brain and cause him to pass out. And it had been tried 247 times, has been used, that actual technique, by the Minneapolis police force, and nobody ever died until George Floyd. So, hoax isn't a strong enough word almost for these people. Let me just point out, because I didn't finish my thought about Oprah Winfrey, who's become a racist in her old age. She bought 26 billboards, one for every year of Breonna Taylor's life, called for the charging of the police officers. There's only one charge. You have a national lynch mob, which is what Black Lives Matter is. There's only one charge, which is murder. here's the reality, and she implied in her statements that, as did everybody on the left, that Breonna Taylor was murdered in her home, in her bed, in her sleep. She wasn't murdered. She wasn't asleep, and she wasn't in bed. Breonna Taylor was an accomplice to a major drug dealer. There were 5 raids that night of the distribution centers for this drug dealer. And when he was dealing with drugs that are spreading death in the black community, that's what Breonna Taylor was up to. She allowed her mailbox to be used as part of his distribution center. She allowed her bank account to be used by this criminal to hide his criminal gains. And she has been doing this consistently for the last 3 years. She even rented a car for him in which a dead person showed up. And that wasn't enough of a warning to her. I mean, we know that people do stupid things as matters of the heart. But she had plenty of warning that this guy was a really bad guy and what he was doing was really bad for the black community. And yet she's been, when the cops appeared at the door, they knocked. They had a no-knock warrant, but they actually knocked and announced they were there. It was 12:30 in the morning. It's pitch black. And she and her boyfriend got out of bed, and the boyfriend fired his weapon at the police, wounding one of them. And, you know, the police, they have families they want to go home to. So they have this saying, it's pray and spray. In other words, you can't see anything. You're being fired at. You don't know how many weapons are aimed in your direction. So you pray and spray and hope.
Right. That's the Breonna Taylor story. We'll be back in a moment. The book, I Can't Breathe, it's up at DennisPrager.com.